Hey everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Now, today we are talking about Jenkins Pipeline with Octopus Deploy. However, first, before we get started with that, I've got some housekeeping to let you know about. So we're going to be recording this webinar, so you don't have to do anything. And in a few days' time, we will be emailing you with that recording. So watch out for that in your inbox. We're also going to be having a 10-minute session at the end of the session where you can ask your questions. So please do hit us up during the session with your questions. You can either head over to our Slack, so octopus.com/Slack, and we have a webinar channel over there where you can post your questions and we'll be watching for them. Alternatively, please use the Zoom Q&A section. And again, we'll monitor those questions and we'll get to them at the end of the session. Now, that's all the housekeeping done. So I want to introduce our guest today, which is the one and only Derek Campbell. Hi, Derek. How you doing?
Hello, Sarah. I'm amazing. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited to learn about this because I know zero about Jenkins Pipeline. So I'm looking forward to this, Derek.
Me too. Honestly, what I've got today, I'm hoping people find really cool. I wasn't a huge user of Jenkins Pipeline. Read that as I've never used Pipeline before in my entire life. So I actually jumped in, done a bit of a deep dive. I think I've got some really cool stuff today just to show off. Got some .NET Core stuff, got a Java build, many deployments. It's going to be fairly technical. We're going to jump in and spin up some Docker containers and all that sort of good stuff.
Brilliant.
So I'm really excited.
Excellent. Well, sounds like you've got lots to cover off. So I'll go and hide and let you do your thing, Derek. So have fun and good luck.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so we're going to start with the agenda. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is continuous integration. We're going to then skip through what is Jenkins, what's a Jenkins file, jump into what's continuous delivery, and then from there we're going to there's a fairly hands-on demo that will take you through, and I have a really cool tool that you can use, and it's entirely free as well. So that keep an eye out for that. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to actually explain what is continuous integration. So, continuous integration is the practice of merging all developers' working copies to a shared main line several times a day. I won't lie, when I actually started looking at this, and it was created in 1991, I'm not trying to give away my age too much here, but I certainly wasn't even 10 years old at that point. And actually, this concept, considering I only really found out about it in about 2010, it feels like it'd been around for 19 years beforehand, which is really a huge surprise to me. But at a high level, continuous integration is all about taking the code written by developers and compiling it into an artifact, running some automated tests. Hopefully, you can find some bugs. Captioning log files so any failed builds can actually be resolved. A CI server facilitates this process by running builds and tests with each after each commit, and then the CI process can actually be described by this equation. And this is not me. I'm not smart enough for this. This is from Matt Casperson. But effectively, code plus dependencies plus build tools plus execution environment equals test results plus logs plus compiled artifacts. And at the end of that, hopefully you're left with something that you can deploy. And the one big thing that I also find is make sure that you build once and you deploy many times rather than building for each environment. That's generally not a good thing to do. Okay, so what is Jenkins, right? It's the most popular continuous integration tool in the world. It really is a great platform. I'm a huge fan. It's got over 1,500 plugins. Octopus Deploy is one of those plugins. That's actually how you can work with Octopus, and I will show you that when I spin up my Docker container in just a moment. There's so many different places that you can host it. You can host it on a local container. You can host it in Kubernetes. There's a range of services such as CloudBees, DigitalOcean, etc. You can the question really you should be asking is, well, who doesn't do it? But you can also spin it up on your own cloud using traditional VMs, Google, Azure, AWS, and pretty much anywhere. It's more of a question where it doesn't run. You can also run it on premises. The good thing is it's open source. So from that, it's entirely free. Really, it's just your compute that costs. First released back in 2005 as Hudson, then launched it as Jenkins in 2011, and roughly about 12.5%, 12.5% of all packages that Octopus receives actually comes from a Jenkins one. And one thing just to be aware is actually Jenkins Pipeline was actually released in 2016. And what is a Jenkins file? So a Jenkins file is a text file that contains the definition of a Jenkins pipeline and is checked into source control. That was something I pulled straight off the CloudBees doc. And then when you have your Jenkins file, that contains your Jenkins pipeline. And Jenkins pipeline is a suite of plugins that you can use to integrate into continuous delivery pipelines. Pipeline provides an extensible set of tools for modeling simple to complex delivery pipelines. In this instance, we are also using Octopus. So we are using it more for the build, the test, and then the deploy aspect, we'll be using Octopus. I think the main thing, and it's something I often get asked for, why use Octopus? Once you go to complex deployments, Octopus really does, excel. It really makes it complex and makes it much more straightforward. Okay, so what is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery pipeline is an automated way to deliver your code. And one thing just to think about is you see CI/CD. There's often two definitions of CD. There's continuous deployment and continuous delivery. For the most part, they are very, very similar. The main thing really is you're taking your package and you're deploying it all the way. So anything that you create a package, you deploy it. So continuous deployment, you need to deploy every artifact all the way to production after it's made its way through all of your environments. And there can be many complexities there. For continuous delivery, it is very similar, but you can schedule it. So it doesn't have to go live there and then. It can be something that you can schedule daily, weekly, fortnightly, really whatever suits your requirements. So this is your traditional CI/CD pipeline. So with this, what you've normally got is up on the main screen is you've got your developer machine. The developer's happy typing away, writing their .NET or their Java code. They're normally using something like GitHub. From there, you'll check in your code. Jenkins, which is your continuous integration server, will grab that code. It'll build the artifact and it'll also run the test, right? And then at that point, it's going to pass that package, whether it's a Java WAR file, jar file, or whether it's a NuGet package, you can pass that into Octopus, and then from there, more often than not, what I see is you normally automatically deploy it to development, and that's what we'll be doing today. That's often triggered by the build, and then QA normally will select a release candidate and then push up to test, and then hopefully, should that be successful, then they'll push it to production. That's normally your DevOps engineers or your web admin. So yeah, at this point, we are ready for demo time. So let's jump in. So first things first, we currently do not have a CI server. So this is something, the first thing we need to do is let's spin up some Jenkins. So Matt Casperson, who I am perpetually stealing ideas off of, has created this universal Jenkins image. This is such a nice image. I have been using this for this entire webinar preparation. And one of the things is it has all of the tools. .NET, it has Maven, Gradle. If you want to build something and it's not included in this Jenkins, then I'm not sure it's worth releasing, if I'm being honest. But so let's jump in. We're going to spin up our Docker container. And then this should work very quickly. So let's just have a quick look at Docker. We jump in. There we go. We're already running, which is great. There we go. So at this point, what we should see is a loading screen for Jenkins. Okay, give it a moment. There we go. So what I've just done there is Docker run, and then I'm using Matt's Jenkins image. I really like this image because with Jenkins, it's a great CI server, which I've set up lots of times. It can get quite complex. My general recommendation is use a Docker container, host it in Kubernetes, and run it on Linux. I generally find it works a little bit better with Linux. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so as you can see, we've now got Jenkins up and running. So one of the things you'll have to do is actually come in and set up Octopus. So one of the things is you're going to have a whole bunch of plugins that you're going to use. So let's see. You can come down and you can use configure system. What I'm doing here is I'm configuring the connection to Octopus. So I've already, as part of the container, I've already actually spun all of this up. I've already installed this. This is one of the benefits of using a container. We don't have to go through and set all of the things up. So as you come in, and then I'm just going to type in webinar.octopus.app, which is our instance today. Oh, that is the wrong location. So down here, yep, this is it here. So one thing here is just pay attention to the server ID. That is something that we'll come back to in just a moment. So what we're going to do here is just pop in the Octopus details. So webinar.octopus.app. I'll show you that in just a moment. And then from there, I'm just going to go off screen for a moment. I'm just going to get the super secret API code. And then I'm going to, and much like anything else, that code, the API key that I've just put in there, we'll never be able to retrieve that from Jenkins. So at this point, I'm going to create a full pipeline for a Java application. So we'll jump over to the pipeline builder. So this is the tool that I'm really excited about. This is something that Matt has. Again, I kind of feel like I talk a lot about Matt, but he's created this really cool tool. The whole point of this tool is that it can scan your GitHub repository and it will give you your pipeline. So in this instance, as you can see, I've got random quotes Java. Let's just bring this up a bit. And there we go. So across the bottom, you've got sample projects. So you've got your Maven, you've got Gradle, you've got Node, PHP, Python, Go, Ruby, .NET Core. In this instance, I want a Maven build. So let's go ahead and get that Maven build. The pipeline, sorry. So this is really cool. So let's have a little look at this. So what you've got up at the top is some parameters. Parameters are things that change. We will change these as part of creating the CI, the Jenkins pipeline. Then here, we're just specifying that you must use the Java JDK. You can run this on any agent. You can actually specify what agents to run this on. How Jenkins works is you have the server and then you have connected agents, and you can actually use those agents for your pipelines. All I've got here is I'm checking out the code. That's normally the first thing you do with this. I'm then grabbing the dependencies from here. I'm actually then putting all these dependencies into a text file, and then I'm building it. And if you're used to working with Maven, you'll see a bunch of Maven commands here as we're going through. And then at the very bottom, we're repackaging it up. And then at the very bottom, as part of the deployment, we're actually passing obviously this is all the deployment for Octopus. So this section does assume that you're using Octopus Deploy, but if you weren't using Octopus, you could still use the Jenkins pipeline builder. Okay, so this is Jenkins. We're going to select new item. At this point, we're going to select random quotes Java. And then select. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the pipeline over. One thing just to be aware of is there is actually some samples that you can use. So as you can see here, there's a hello world sample. You can do this. I would definitely check out the Jenkins documentation as well. There's some fantastic stuff in there. But with that, obviously the pipelines generator has went ahead and got all that up and running for us. So I'm just going to remove this pipeline. I'm just going to come up and I'm going to change the parameters species to, and then I'm going to call this random quotes Java. Change this. Some of these items, so when I was chatting to you earlier on about the server ID, it assumes obviously here, this is something you can change. So if you've got multiple API keys or multiple Octopus instances, you could have, say, an instance called test and one for production. That's something that you could do here. So in this instance, I've got the Java JDK. I'm allowing this to run on any environment, as I know it's going to run on the Jenkins server. I've got some dependencies. Again, we've got our build up next. Then we're running the test, and then we're packaging it. And then from here, we're repackaging. And then lastly, at the bottom, you have the Octopus section. So at this point, I'm going to select save, and then I'm going to build it. Let's see. So one thing just to be aware of, this is something that I did find, is normally you build this with parameters. So your space ID may change. For instance, in this instance, normally what you'll see is until you run the first one, the build with parameters option is not available. So the first run actually has to go ahead. So that's just something to be aware of. In this instance, as I've actually already updated the parameters and they are correct as part of the configuration, then this should hopefully work. But what you can do is, say for instance, you can select different parameters. Say you had a different Octopus instance or a different space ID. This is something that can change. This instance is 262. We're still using the same project name, development name, and the server ID. So let's go back, and then hopefully what we should see is a working pipeline. Let's go in and have a look at the console. There we go. Let's have a look here. There we go. So as you can see here, obviously we're just using this. We're pulling down the random quotes Java instance. We are then specifying the path. At this point, it's then running through. It's got all the bits there. It's grabbed all the bits here. Come down, and then from here, there's a bunch of logs from Maven, and that's just something to be aware of. And then as we go down to the bottom, here we go. So at this point, it's then building a demo. It's then going to package that up and then ship that off to Octopus. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to just leave this because I know this does take a few moments. So when you're setting up Jenkins, one thing just to be aware of is you have to install additional tools. So for instance, if you're using Java, you want a JDK. My recommendation, like I said earlier on, is to run this on a container or a Linux platform. But what you can do is if you come in and then if you come back to the dashboard and then you select Manage Jenkins, before, when you set this up, and one thing, if you're setting up, we do have some really great documentation on octopus.com/docs, and this will take you through the extensions that you require. So what I've got here is I've actually went ahead already as part of this container, installed a whole bunch of the tools. So you can see here we're using JDK. So this is your Zulu JDK. We're already installed Git, things like Gradle, MS Build. We've got the Octopus Deploy CLI. Without the CLI, we can't do anything with Octopus. And then separately, we've configured the deployment from from Jenkins to Octopus. So this is something you'll spend a lot of time in here, and you may bang your head. But like I said earlier on, go ahead and use this. So you'll see here, this is just something here. So just Docker run. And then M. Casperson Universal Jenkins, it really will get you out of a pickle. Okay, so hopefully at this point, ta-da, we have green. I have sacrificed enough to the demo gods today. I am very happy. At this point, let's you just see here, we have a green build. And this not only just means that there's a green build, there's also been a successful deployment. So let's see, we come in, have a look at the console. Many logs. You can check this out, and then I'll go scroll all the way back down, and then from here you can see that some of the Jenkins is connected to the Jenkins space, and this is something that you can view on webinar.octopus.app using guest authentication. So this is something to be aware of. And then at this point we should jump over And then there we go. Random quotes Java. Success has been achieved. What we've got here is the same. One of the big things I always do is I always name my CI project and my Octopus project is the same. Just generally makes things a little bit easier. What we've got here is a deployment package. So what we've just done is we've transferred a Java package and a jar file, and then we've ran it. So at that point, it's went ahead. Let's just see this. So there we go. We've got this. Let's jump in. Sarah, I know how much you love, how much I love a verbose warning. So we're going to expand all the things here. So what, as you can see, it's grabbed the Maven project. It's went ahead, installed it, and deployed the jar. And we have a working website. At this point, I don't have any test infrastructure. If I'm being honest, I have just set up development. I didn't want to spend this time on today's webinar, just basically pushing this through to production. It's probably not a good use of your time. But yeah, that's certainly something that you can check out, and you'll be able to come into webinar.octopus.app and have a little bit of a play about. At this point, now it's back to Jenkins. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same thing, but for .NET Core. So let's go over to the generator. You're really going to like this. And so just to get to the, oh, 1 second. There we go. Brief interlude there as the Jenkins Pipeline builder fell over. In this instance, what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to use the exact same, it's a different project, but it's the same random quotes website. Select go. So here, if you select Go, it will try and find what technology and what languages to use. In this instance, I just want to remove that, and I'm just going to select .NET Core. So at this point, it's going to scan the repository. It's then going to run through everything for you. And here we go. So we've got our parameters again. Again, any agent from here. The dependencies now look very different. As you can see here, this is your traditional .NET Core commands. You've got your .NET Restore, .NET List packages, and so forth. At this point, we're then doing a .NET build using the release configuration, which is common practice. We're then actually running some tests as well, which you should always do on your CI server. We're then publishing it. As you can see here, that's just a .NET publish. And then from there, again, you'll come down to the deployment stage. And the deployment stage then is just full of really great stuff with Octopus. Again, you can use this with other tools. You just won't be able to use this last deploy stage. So that's something that you'd have to do yourself. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go over to Jenkins. I'm going to do new item. I'm just going to call this one random quotes this time. I'm going to pipeline. Obviously, that was a Java pipeline. This is a .NET Core, very similar. Come back into the pipeline script area. I've just went to the bit at the top again, and then I'm going to change this to 262 random quotes. I'm going to keep. I'm going to change this to development. And the Octopus server ID again. So we'll use the same connection. We'll use random quotes as a project. And then from there, we'll also push that to spaces 262. So select save. And this is something, your pipeline is all written in Groovy. And it's something here. Again, like I said earlier on, I am going to select build now. Again, you normally use that build with parameters, so that's those can change. I'm hoping this time that it'll go ahead. I've already used this, so if you come into configure, you'll actually see that the parameters there. So you've got the space ID parameter. You can specify a default value. You can add things, a description here as well. And then you've got your project name, and this will be your Octopus project name. And then from here, you've got your environment name. We're only taking this to development. And then lastly, our server ID. So this is something you can change. It's something just to be aware of. So at this point, let's have a look at the build for the .NET Core. So also, this is something that's quite cool, is you can actually see all of your dependencies in a text file, which is really cool. So that's just something that you can check out. And then actually some updates as well. So any updates, there we go. So at this point, let's jump into the console output. It should still be building. So here we go. Again, cloning the repository. It's there we go. Welcome to .NET 5. Obviously, with this, the SDK is already installed, and then we go through. We're doing our build, our test. In this instance, we're actually going to create a brand new NuGet package and then going to pass it into an Azure web app. Previously, I actually deployed to a virtual machine running Java, and that was just a jar app. This one is an Azure web app using platform as a service as well. I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, so as you can see here, we're going through. Everything is looking good. And then this is the important bit. So as you can see here, we're doing the octo push. We're specifying webinar. The API key should be hidden, thankfully. The spaces ID, this is the package that we've created. In this instance, that is actually a zip file we've created. And then from here, you've actually see that we're basically pushing the build information. And then lastly, we're deploying to development. And there we go. So at this point, this is actually going ahead and deploying. So you can see here, we've got random quotes waiting for one deployment to complete. At this point, let's jump on over to Octopus. And there we go. We can actually see the deployment's happening already. Let's have a look at the logs. So at this point, what we're effectively just doing is just going to do a health check. This is something I only actually found out recently. I thought it was a really cool idea just to check your deployment targets just before you do any deployment. It's a really nice touch. Whilst that's going ahead and doing the deployment, let's actually have a look at what we're doing in the deployment process. So what I've done here is this is a built-in step that we use. They check the web, the actual check health of your deployment infrastructure. And then from here, I'm then just deploying an Azure web app. Random quotes is just a flat .NET Core application. It generates random quotes, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So at this point, I'm just grabbing the random quotes zip file, and then I'm deploying it straight to Azure. And then lastly, I'm lazy when it comes to certain things. And what I've done here is I've just written a little markdown script that will effectively just tell me the URL to use. This is something I would probably recommend making as a variable. So this is something you could do and then build in the variable. So let's set. So at this point, hopefully I've spoken enough that we have a working deployment. Oh, we have not. So here we go. So now we're just grabbing the packages. So as you can see here, everything is looking good. We are went in, we've acquired the package. We are just deploying it now as well. So we're deploying this up to Azure. Actually, whilst that's happening, I just want to prove that it's like anything, like with any webinar. There are no smoke and mirrors here. You've got your random quotes Azure web app. You can see here that this is a web app, and we've tagged it with random quotes web. And then lastly, the other one is just a Windows. We've just got this running on a Windows box, so that's something just to be aware of. Okay, so hopefully, yes, there we go. We have a working deployment. Let's come on over. At this point, I'm just waiting on that clickable link, and we're just waiting. And then, yeah, so what happens is this will just print this out in Markdown. So I can just basically click on it and it'll take me straight to the web app. So there we go. So whilst that's happening, if you do want to see any of the GitHub repositories, you want to use them, feel free. You can actually see those on github.com/octopus samples and then random quotes. Just one thing is we do have a bunch of samples that you can use. You can fork them. So it's just something just to be aware of. There's some really cool stuff in here. There's Octo HR apps. So that's definitely something to have a little bit of a look at. Okay, and then so that's the random quotes. That's the .NET Core one that I'm showing you, and so here's the Java one as well. As you can see, there's already a Jenkins file which I didn't want to use for this one, but yeah. So at this point, there we go. We have hopefully. Oh, I've called it a little bit too early. Not quite. That seems a little bit slower than normal. I apologize about that. Okay, so at this point, it's just waiting on the print out the URL. So, as part of this, just whilst we actually just wrap this up, I just want to take a moment just to do a recap. What we've done today is we've created a brand new Jenkins server. We've populated it with an Octopus server name and an API key. We've then set up a brand new Java app, set up the full CI setup. We've then taken that pipeline, we've built it into Jenkins, passed that application over to Octopus, where we had a pre-configured application where we could deploy that. That went ahead and that was a successful deployment. And then additionally, we took the exact same application and then we built the .NET Core aspect of it. From there, what we've done is, again, we built the pipeline. We've taken that pipeline and artifact, we've passed that to Octopus, and then we've deployed it to an Azure web app. And hopefully now I have a working, there we go. We just click here and we should have an application. And there we go. So we have our quotes as a service. Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up. Pablo Picasso. Have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. Oh, that's a little sad. But yeah. So at this point, let's head on over to Q&A. So then, Sarah, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do, Derek. And I just want to say thank you for that, because that was really educational. So well done. So first question we've got here from our audience is, could you please detail how the Jenkins Pipeline Builder is launched?
Certainly. So if you browse to jenkinspipelines.com, what you'll be able to do is input your repository. And then from there, you would select either Go. When you do that, what it does is it scans your repository for technologies used. And often what I find is it selects the right technology. So if it's a .NET Core repository, then it will likely pick that. And when you go to jenkinspipelines.com, what you also see is a list of projects at the bottom. And the list of what you can do is, say if it's a .NET Core app, if you press the .NET Core logo, then it'll give you the .NET Core pipeline. Similar if it's Java, but what you can do is just effectively select the technology or the languages, etc., that you're using, and it should go ahead and generate. To be honest, I've had 100% success rate with them so far. Please do check out jenkinspipelines.com. It really helped me. So there's really cool stuff there.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned it does a bunch of languages or technologies, Derek. Do you know the list of ones that it does?
Yeah, certainly. It does Maven, Gradle, Node, PHP, Python, Go, Ruby, and .NET Core. And by all means, if there's any others that you think we should do, please get in touch with us. That would be awesome. You can get in touch with us at community@octopus.com.
Awesome. Now, we've also got a question here from the audience saying that if they use the Jenkins pipeline generator, do they have to use Octopus Deploy?
No, that's one of the cool things. You don't have to use it. The one thing is at the very end, which I showed in the demo today, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of Octopus configuration. One of the things I would recommend doing is effectively you would have to write the deployment section of your pipeline. So that's just something to check out. There's lots of great stuff out there on the Jenkins website. So if you're unsure, definitely check that one out.
Excellent. You showed a Jenkins container as part of the webinar. Where did you get that from, Derek?
That is Mr. Matt Casperson. He actually created it. So if you check out github.com/M Casperson, that's MCASPERSON/universal Jenkins image. You can actually download that, and it really does come with everything. It's like the Swiss Army knife of Jenkins containers.
Excellent. We've also got a question here about how to connect Jenkins with Octopus, because our listener in here is a new user to Octopus and Jenkins. Where's the best place for them to go and get some information about connecting Jenkins and Octopus together, Derek?
Certainly. So what you can do is, the first thing you need to do is actually grab the Octopus the Octopus plugin for Jenkins. You can get that from octopus.com/download. You can then install that there. Additionally, you can also just install the CLI and then write your own. There's a few different things there. I have actually got a getting started with, turbocharging, obviously slightly different name, turbocharging Jenkins with Octopus Deploy, where I actually installed that. That was about 15 months ago. So just definitely check out on the YouTube channel, but that's where we cover that.
Awesome. We've got someone asking, you kind of skipped over the CI part of it and the testing aspect, but could you elaborate any more on that, Derek, or do we have information on any of that for the end users?
Yeah, definitely. So it will run your test. There was testing in there. That's not a very good demo, but effectively when you create, so if you list your tests within your repository, so I'll come from, say, a .NET Core. Obviously, you would have your solution. It would be named tests. It will run those on your behalf. If you actually check out webinar.octopus.app, the tests have actually been uploaded here as a artifact. So that's something you can also do as well. But yeah, in the Jenkins pipeline generator, it will create a few, it will create, like, say, the agent, the deploy, the build, the test, etc. That all happens by default.
Excellent. Now we've got a listener in asking about that Jenkins Docker container again. And I know we talked about this previously, Derek. Was that container a Linux or a Windows one?
That was Linux. And my general recommendation with Jenkins is, where possible, actually run it on Linux. Linux containers, to be honest, just so you're aware, like, we looked at Windows containers and they are further along the line. But yeah, I would generally recommend you run Jenkins on Linux. It's kind of built for Linux. You can run it on Windows, and I've actually used it a bunch in the past on Windows. I just find that things like dependencies are a lot clearer, a lot easier to install and set up effectively. And with the container, because, like, for instance, Octopus Cloud, that actually all runs on Linux containers as well. You know, it's the future. So that, I'm sure until I hear different about Windows containers, then yeah.
Awesome. Now we've also got a question here. Can Octopus trigger tests within Jenkins after a deployment, or can Octopus be used to run tests?
You can definitely configure Octopus Jenkins to run your tests. So that's the whole point of CI. You should be running your automated tests. So things like integration testing. We do see some people actually then call back to Jenkins or other CI servers to run the test manually. Because one of the things that you can also do is actually run testing on your deployed app, right? So things like, say, for instance, penetration testing. So you could definitely do that. Another way to do that is you could actually even just do it from Octopus as well. Rather than making that call back to Jenkins, you could effectively deploy it and then have something like a worker tool with your testing tools and actually have that. So there's a few ways to do it. Definitely use your CI for your automated tests, you know, making sure your code's coverage and your code's fully tested as much as it can be. But yeah, that's how I would go about and do that.
Okay, awesome. We've also got someone asking whether Jenkins supports pipelines for a SQL Server. Do you know the answer to that, Derek? Have you done anything with that?
I don't, if I'm being honest. But to be honest, I'm sure it could. To be honest, there's very little that Jenkins can't do, to be honest. I don't know that, but I know that there's other tools out there, but you can definitely build SQL packages to be deployed, so that's no problem at all. I don't have that answer. If you do want us to jump into that, reach out to advice@octopus.com. That's our customer solutions team. They can jump into that. And I know that Bob Walker and Sean Cessna are database wizards. There's all of the databases. That's, you know, MySQL, MS SQL, Liquidbase, etc. So yeah, definitely check that out.
Awesome. And I think one last question, Derek. The URL for that Jenkins pipeline generator, can you give us a hint to that, where it was again?
Yeah, that's it. So it's Jenkins, that's Jenkins with an S, and then pipelines.com. We couldn't buy jenkinspipeline.com. So that's something. So yeah, it is a plural. It's definitely something to be aware of. But yeah, jenkinspipelines.com. We're also hoping to get it added to the website under the free tools section as well.
over the next week or so as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. I think that's all our questions from our attendees. So again, thank you for that.
Awesome.
And thank you to everybody that has tuned in today. Just to wrap up, as Derek said, if you ever get any further questions around this, do reach out to our team at advice@octopus.com. They'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Also, if you are interested in joining Octopus and becoming part of the team, then we are hiring lots of different jobs across the world. So definitely check out our career website. We'd love to have you on the team as well. And just to give you a heads up about future webinars, we have some scheduled for the rest of this month. So lots to be excited about, and hopefully we will catch you there. But thank you everybody for tuning in today, and hopefully see you again.